Howdy, Full Metal Cowboy Straight shooting a review of the anime Monster. This is an adaptation of Naoki Urasawa's manga of the same name and aired from 2004 to 2005. The studio behind the anime adaptation of Monster was Madhouse. Back in the early 2010s, I watched the anime Monster through the streaming service Hulu. Back when it used to be a free streaming service, but with ads in them. Now it's a streaming service that requires a subscription, so oh well. But anyway, I took a break from watching Monster back then to just kind of let it sink in, and then I would come back to it later. But when I attempted to come back to it later, it was gone from Hulu, and I discovered that the license expired. Hence why it left Hulu. Monster is in a really sad state of affairs when it comes to accessing the anime itself. This is because ever since Viz Media lost the license to Monster, it has not been made available for streaming or even home video. There was a home video release of Monster on DVD that contained episodes 1 through 15, but due to low sales, Viz Media canceled releasing future volumes of Monster, and that is quite a shame. And that's because of Viz Media's poor marketing towards Monster, given how Naruto and Bleach were heavily marketed in comparison. Ever since Viz Media lost the license to Monster, as well as Monster leaving Hulu, after months and months and even years, I just realized that I didn't get back to this anime after I decided to take a break from it. And I decided that if I were to revisit again, I might just start from square one and then just push through the rest of the series. And that I did, much recently. Now, I did experience the manga in full because Naoki Urasawa's thriller masterpiece is actually completely available through Viz's manga department. I may have not read a lot of manga in my experience of reading manga, but I can proudly say that Monster is one of the best manga I have ever read and easily one of my favorites. And you want to know something? I was not originally planning on reviewing Monster this year. I was going to put this on hold until a later time. But earlier this year, a YouTube friend of mine, Mackenzie Critiques, went on a trip to an exhibit that was featuring Naoki Urasawa's work. And the best part about it is that Naoki Urasawa himself was there. Mackenzie Critiques, you lucky bastard. Now I'm wishing that this same exhibit comes to Seattle because I would love to go myself. And I probably should read other works by Naoki Urasawa such as Pluto, Master Keaton, and of course 20th Century Boys. Especially that last one because I've heard nothing but a lot of praise towards it. And seeing as how Mackenzie Critiques got to go to a exhibit dedicated to Naoki Urasawa's work, I figured I would respond by doing a review of Monster because it happened to be the first title I've experienced from Naoki Urasawa's body of work, both in manga and its anime adaptation. And October 8th just so happens to be his birthday. Oh, and I hate to address this. This review of Monster is going to be spoiler-free. Just saying. I can assure you that I do plan on making a spoiler review of Monster, but I want to save that for next year. I already got my plate full with this month, so just wanted to point that out. The only details I'm willing to give away for this review has to do with details that concern the premise of Monster. And this should not be considered a spoiler because I'm talking about the setup of the story. Monster introduces us to our protagonist, Dr. Kenzo Tenma, a Japanese surgeon living in Germany. And he has quite the reputation as a surgeon and has high respect from his fellow doctors as well as other staff members of the hospital he works for. There's just one thing. Dr. Tenma isn't really on board with how biased the hospital is. And one night, there is a young boy that has a bullet wound in the head, and Dr. Tenma was told to operate on a mayor, but he chooses to operate on the young boy. This did have repercussions, and ooh boy, those repercussions do have quite the effect on the series. If anyone is still going by this whole 3-episode rule when it comes to anime, why, I think that idea is just bullshit, because Monster is actually written quite well, that I think it would encourage viewers to stick around longer. Hell, the first 4 episodes are masterful in terms of how it sets up the rest of the story. And episode 4, without giving anything away, showed me that there was proper care in the direction that this anime was going to be taking. And the same applies to Naoki Urasawa's writing in the original source material, which is the manga. If you have read the original manga by Naoki Urasawa, watching the anime Monster is nearly the same exact experience, but with color, animation, sound, and music. The plot and characters remain the same. So in a way, the anime adaptation of Monster may make audiences think that reading the manga would be pointless, given that they have experienced pretty much the exact same thing in anime form. And I don't say that to discredit Naoki Urasawa's manga, which actually did precede the anime adaptation, of course. And I would highly recommend that you read the manga despite the anime adaptation may have been seen before. And that's because Naoki Urasawa's manga of the same name is a magnificent work of fiction, and the artwork is actually quite good for a manga series of its time. The animation in Monster is actually quite good for a television anime production, and I can tell that Madhouse went for a more economical direction with its animation, that or they tried to not go as bombastic with visuals in order to match the style of Naoki Urasawa's artwork. What is also evident in the anime adaptation of Monster, and the same does apply to the manga of the same name, is that there are no visual anime side gags present in Monster. At all. Naoki Urasawa's direction was excellent throughout the entire manga, and that translates fully into the anime as well. The music in Monster was done by Kuniaki Maishima, and I checked his body of work to see what else he worked on, and I haven't really seen anything else that I can recall that he has done music for, and I am convinced that this is perhaps his best work. And I gotta talk about the opening and closing themes of Monster. They are both great. The opening does a great job of sucking the viewer in with its visuals, as well as those vocals that are quite eerie in Monster, and rightfully so. And I cannot get enough of the first closing theme, For the Love of Life, by David Sylvian. This is a great closing theme, especially for Monster. And after about 32 episodes, if I recall correctly, For the Love of Life is changed to the second closing theme of Monster, Make It Home, sung by Fujiko Hemming. To be honest with you, I did not like the second closing theme at first, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I just really liked that first closing theme so much. But as I progressed through Monster after the second closing theme kicked in, I've grown to appreciate Make It Home as much as I did For the Love of Life. And is it just me, or does that singer sound like a Japanese Herbert from Family Guy? Sorry, couldn't resist. While I do think Monster's opening and closing themes stand out, I also think that Kuniaki Maishima's score also benefits Monster as well. Because whenever Monster gets really suspenseful, we get some ambient sounds to support that. And when Monster gets dramatic, there's that orchestral score that swoops in and makes that scene work. And I gotta hand it to Masayuki Kojima for his direction of the anime adaptation of Monster. While this is an extremely faithful adaptation that could be seen as almost the same experience as the manga, what I actually do like about the anime adaptation is that it offers some enhancements to the same story that is contained in the manga. It really goes without saying because it's quite obvious, but the anime adaptation of Monster has one big enhancement, and that would be sound. And the sound design to the anime adaptation of Monster does not disappoint. It's got great music for this kind of series. It's got unsettling ambience, which is so fitting. And the sound effects are good. And here's another factor on the sound department of Monster, and that would be the voice acting, which you cannot go wrong with both versions, as the original Japanese cast and the English dub cast are excellent. However, I would suggest that you watch the original Japanese cast to get the most out of Monster. I'll explain in a moment. To Mackenzie Critiques, did you know that Nozomu Sasaki, the voice of the main antagonist of Monster, also voiced Tetsuo in the film Akira, as well as Yulian from Legend of the Galactic Heroes? Yep, same guy. And I actually find the main antagonist of Monster to be one of his memorable performances. Hell, Nozomu Sasaki is not the only one from Akira that made it in Monster. Mami Koyama, who voiced Kei in Akira, also landed a role in Monster. Now, while the English dub of Monster has an excellent cast behind it, the only little nitpick I have with the dub has to be Liam O'Brien as Kenzo Tema. While I do think his performance was great, it took a little getting used to hearing his low voice come in at times, which I don't think really fits the character sometimes, especially when he talks like this. It can get a little distracting when I'm actually looking at the character himself, because Kenzo Tema doesn't seem to be that kind of character that would sound like that. But there's a reason why I said that you'll get the most out of Monster if you watch it subtitled. There are some changes that were made for the English version of Monster. The big noticeable difference being this.
And slowly you come to realize
I suspect the reason why the closing theme was changed to be an instrumental was likely due to licensing costs. Now, Make It Home, the second closing theme, is not even present in the English release of Monster. So that could be a shame for some audiences that may have a fondness for that particular closing theme. I also have noticed that some of the ambience in the original Japanese version is missing in the English release. So that's why I say that you will get the most out of Monster if you watch it subtitled. And now I go into a particular territory that can also apply to the manga by Naoki Urasawa, and I'm going to talk about the characters and story briefly in one talking point. What makes Monster truly work, on both accounts, from the manga to the anime, are its characters. These characters are worth the time investment. There are characters in Monster that you'll probably love, hate, sympathize, or find quite interesting. And Naoki Urasawa did not disappoint with the characters because he had proper care in how he wrote those characters, as well as telling a captivating and compelling story to boot. If there's one thing about Monster, regardless if it was the manga or anime, that can be easily nitpicked, it would be the pacing. Because yes, Monster can be slow at times, but the methodical slow pacing, I think, works with Monster. And I can tell that Naoki Urasawa aimed this story for a mature and patient audience. If you are patient with Monster, I assure you, you will find the experience rewarding once you finish it. And speaking of finish it, I'm sure you'll question the ending. In a good way. As I said before, Monster is a masterpiece of a manga, but I am talking about its anime adaptation in this review. And I'm here to say that even though it is nearly the same experience as the manga, the anime adaptation of Monster stands out on its own alongside its source material, especially with that one enhancement being the entire sound design, as well as having color presented in the anime adaptation, as the manga is clearly black and white. And just like the manga, the anime is something that I would consider to be a masterpiece as well, because nothing was taken out that much with the source material, and what was great about the manga is also present in the anime adaptation of Monster. This is one of the best anime I've ever seen, and it's easily one of my top 10 favorites. And I'm glad it's in there because I appreciate good storytelling and I appreciate great anime. Without further ado, I am shooting a 10 out of 10 for Monster. This anime seriously needs a new license. Released in full with restored audio, especially with the ambient part that was missing from the dub, as well as having the closing themes restored. Because I would love to own the anime adaptation of Monster sometime in my life. Well, there's always the manga by Naoki Urasawa, which actually was released in full. All the volumes, all the chapters are available if I wish to go for them. I guess I could sell it for that for now. But for the time being, I guess I'll just stick to watching Monster online, like I did before. So, with that said, that's my review of Monster. I'll be reloading for my next review, so until then, I'll see you later.
Yes, 今この世界でわかること見つめて
By the way, happy birthday, Mackenzie Critiques!
And slowly you come to realize it's all as it should be. You can only do so much if you're game enough. You could place your trust in me. For the love of life, there's a trade-off. We could lose it all, but we'll go